The temperature had dropped to 20 degrees at Christmas Eve as I sat alone in my car, parked in the driveway of my sister Diana's grand estate. Through the frosted windows, I could see the soft glow of Christmas lights and hear the muffled laughter of party guests. Laughter I wasn't invited to share in. "You can stay in your car if you really want to be here for Christmas morning," Diana had said earlier, her flawless makeup and icy tone perfectly in sync. "The guest rooms are reserved for important people. But I guess you're used to this kind of thing." She thought I was struggling. She thought the old Honda I always drove to family events was all I had. If only she knew that my real car collection, 3 Ferraris and a custom Rolls-Royce, sat quietly in a climate-controlled garage across town. Let me explain how I ended up spending Christmas Eve in my car outside my sister's mansion. 7 years ago, I was just another freshly minted MBA, full of ambition but short on capital. Diana, 2 years older, was already a rising star at Morton Financial. Our parents never stopped gushing about her 6-figure salary and corner office. Meanwhile, I saw a gap no one else did. Traditional banks were failing to keep up with technological change. I bet everything on that insight. I used my savings, borrowed from friends, maxed out credit cards, and founded Finer Technologies. The early years were brutal, 100-hour weeks, sleeping in the office, surviving on ramen. At every family gathering, Diana made a show of offering me an entry-level job at her firm with the smuggest of smiles. But behind the scenes, Finer was building something revolutionary. By year 3, we landed our first major contract. A regional bank saw a 300% increase in transaction efficiency after implementing our system. Word spread. Soon we were working with 3 of the top 10 banks in the country. I stayed quiet. I kept the old car, the modest apartment, and the failure label my family had pinned on me. By the time we went public last year, Finer was a global giant. The IPO made headlines. My net worth soared past $400 million overnight. But I didn't tell my family. Not out of shame, out of curiosity. I wanted to see how long they'd keep treating me like the black sheep. Diana, especially, delighted in reminding me of our differences. She just started a new role at Blackwater Capital, endlessly bragging about her new boss, Elizabeth Chin, a supposed titan of industry. What she didn't know was that Blackwater was one of Finer's largest clients. I had personally approved their contract. Elizabeth and I had weekly strategy calls. In fact, we'd just spoken that week, and when she heard how Diana had treated me, she was furious. "We need to teach her a lesson in humility," Elizabeth had said. So, we came up with a plan. Now, back in my car, I checked my phone. 18 degrees. A new text lit up the screen. "Elizabeth, everything's set for tomorrow morning." Me. "Perfectly. Can't wait." A second message came in from my PR team. The Forbes article was scheduled to go live at 7 a.m. sharp. Headline: Finn Corcio named Businesswoman of the Year. It included the photo from the charity gala, me in an emerald gown, shaking hands with world leaders. Diana, sipping her morning coffee and browsing business news, would see it first thing. I reclined my seat and wrapped myself in an emergency blanket from the trunk. A woman worth hundreds of millions, sleeping in her car just to prove a point. Through the window, I watched Diana show off her imported marble countertops, unaware that my yearly income could buy her house 100 times over. At midnight, the party wound down. Guests left in luxury cars. My parents retired to one of the important people guest rooms. Diana appeared at her upstairs window, glancing down at my car with a smirk. She had no idea. I checked my watch. 12:01 a.m. Christmas morning. In less than 7 hours, the world would know who I really was. In 8, Elizabeth would arrive for a surprise visit to her new employees' holiday party. And Diana's world of superiority, about to shatter like fine crystal. I fell asleep with a smile on my face. I woke at 6:45 a.m. Frost coated the windows. Through the kitchen window, I could see Diana directing her staff with military precision, preparing a flawless breakfast for her new boss. At exactly 7 o'clock, my phone buzzed. Notification: Forbes article live. I watched through the glass as Diana sat down with her tablet and coffee. I could see the moment she read the headline. Her hand trembled. A crash echoed through the house as her coffee cup shattered on the imported tile. "This can't be right," she stammered to our mother. I just smiled. Sometimes the best gifts aren't wrapped in shiny paper. Sometimes they come in the form of long overdue revelations. And sometimes they come from a car in the driveway. It was 20 degrees on Christmas Eve when I sat huddled in my car, parked in my sister Diana's lavish driveway. Through her frosted mansion windows, warm lights twinkled, laughter echoed, and the clink of crystal glasses hinted at the party I wasn't welcome to join. "The guest rooms are for important people," Diana had said with a flawless smile and a voice dipped in condescension. "You can sleep in your car if you're staying for Christmas morning. You're probably used to that anyway." She had no idea that the beat-up Honda I drove was a prop, a decoy. My real cars, including a custom Rolls-Royce and 3 Ferraris, sat in a private, climate-controlled garage across town. But let's rewind a bit. 7 years ago, I was just another MBA graduate with big dreams. Diana, older by 2 years, was already on her way up the corporate ladder at Morton Financial. Our parents loved to flaunt her 6-figure salary and corner office. Meanwhile, I poured my savings and borrowed funds into an idea no one believed in: finer technologies. The first 2 years were brutal. I slept in my office, ate instant noodles, and watched my family, especially Diana, snicker at my entrepreneurial delusion. She'd even offered to help me apply for an entry-level job at her firm. I always declined. What they didn't know was that my company was quietly building banking software that would transform the financial industry. By year 3, our software tripled efficiency at a small regional bank. Word spread. Contracts with 3 of the nation's top 10 banks followed. We expanded globally. Then last year, I took Finer public. The IPO made headlines. My personal wealth passed $400 million. But I kept up the act. Same old car. Same basic apartment. I wanted to see just how long they keep treating me like a failure. Which brings us back to Christmas Eve. Diana had a new job at Blackwater Capital and wouldn't stop bragging about her boss, Elizabeth Chin, a legend in the industry. What Diana didn't know was that Elizabeth and I had weekly meetings. Finer had just closed a $100 million contract with Blackwater, and I'd personally approved it. When Elizabeth learned how Diana had treated me, she said, "We need to teach her a lesson about making assumptions." The plan was set. At 7 a.m. Christmas morning, Forbes would publish its Businesswoman of the Year issue, with me on the cover. At 8 o'clock, Elizabeth would surprise Diana with a holiday visit. I reclined my car seat, wrapped myself in an emergency blanket, and watched Diana lead a tour of her opulent home. She paused at the imported marble countertops, completely unaware that my annual income could buy her house 100 times over. I drifted off smiling. Christmas morning. At 6:45 a.m., I woke to a phone buzzing and frost coating the windows. Inside, Diana was orchestrating her staff like a general before a royal inspection. At exactly 7 o'clock, the Forbes article went live. Moments later, I watched her settle at her breakfast nook with coffee in her tablet. Smash! The sound of a coffee cup shattering echoed from the kitchen. This can't be right," she stammered to our mother. I stepped out of the car and walked up the steps. Diana yanked open the door before I could knock, her face pale. "Explain this," she said, thrusting the tablet at me. It showed my photo from the Tech Innovation Awards, me in a Chanel gown, accepting an award for most influential tech CEO under 40. "Oh, that," I said innocently. "Just a standard business article. This woman, she looks exactly like you." "She is me," I replied, "founder and CEO of Finer Technologies, the company that signed a $100 million deal with your employer, the one whose software you'll be implementing across all your divisions." Diana collapsed into a chair. Our mother snatched the tablet, scrolling frantically. "This is impossible. You sleep in your car." "I did last night. By choice," I said. "Just like I drive that Honda to family events. Would you like to see what I really drive?" I showed them photos of my car collection. Diana's face turned ghostly. "But your apartment, your clothes." "All part of the experiment," I interrupted. "I wanted to see how my own family would treat someone they thought was beneath them." The doorbell rang. "Oh, God," Diana gasped. "Elizabeth's here." "Perfect," I said, walking to the door. "Right on time." Diana opened it, visibly panicked. Elizabeth Chin stepped inside, smiling warmly. "Madison, Merry Christmas." I hope you weren't too cold sleeping in your car. You know each other? Diana whispered. Know her. Elizabeth laughed. She's one of our most valuable partners. We speak weekly. I didn't know. Exactly, Elizabeth said, her tone turning ice cold. Making your sister sleep in a car, especially one who's reshaping the future of banking? That's disappointing. Not the kind of judgment we value in our executives. Diana's carefully crafted world shattered right there on the imported tile. Madison, Elizabeth said, shall we discuss the Asia-Pacific rollout over breakfast? I hear there's a lovely dining room here, unless it's reserved for important people. I sat at the head of the table, my cheap clothes a quiet contrast to the wealth I actually commanded. Diana served us coffee, her hands trembling. For the next hour, we discussed global software integration, while our mother stared in stunned silence, and Diana processed the consequences of her arrogance. When Elizabeth stood to leave, she turned to Diana. Take some time to consider if Blackwater is the right fit for you. We expect better judgment from our executives. After she left, silence filled the mansion. Finally, Diana spoke. Why? She asked. Why keep it a secret? Why let us treat you like that? Because I wanted to see who you really were. Now I know. I stood up. I have a charity gala tonight, the one where I'm donating $10 million to education programs. You might have seen the headlines. Madison, please. Our mother stepped forward. We can fix this. Can you fix years of treating me like I wasn't good enough? Like I didn't belong because I didn't flaunt my success? I walked to the door. Oh, and Diana, about your job? You might want to update your resume. Made company CEO sleep in her car doesn't look great to future employers. Later that night, back in my penthouse, preparing for the gala, I ignored a flood of messages from relatives who suddenly wanted to reconnect. I focused on my speech, one about integrity, humility, and how we judge people. Not by their title, not by their clothes, but by how they treat others. As I looked out over the audience, business leaders, philanthropists, and visionaries, I thought of Diana and my mother, probably still sitting in that mansion, realizing that the daughter they dismissed had quietly built an empire. The next morning, one final text came from Diana. I'm sorry. I understand if you never forgive me. I put the phone down without replying and looked out at the city skyline. The finer technologies building gleamed in the sunlight. I'd learned something over those years. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes, the best lessons are taught not through confrontation, but through silence. Some guest rooms aren't worth sleeping in, especially when you own the whole house next door.